In the fourth point, again we will see that the end of the Bretton Woods and beginning of the globalization, that only we have seen in the globalization chapter. Okay, we are coming back to the second point, that is the early post-war years. What happened? The Bretton Woods system inaugurated an era of unprecedented growth of the trade and income for the Western industrial nations and Japan. We can see the development because of the Bretton Woods. It is happening in the Western industrial countries, means the European countries and American countries. Then it is coming to Japan also. World trade grew annually at over 8% between 1950 to 70, and income at nearly 5%. We can see the development in the world, means economical growth of the world, that we can see 8% between 1950 to 70. That is the industrial trade development. At the same time, per capita income or income of the people, that is developing 5%. And the growth was also mostly stable without large fluctuations. So in that time we can see there was no that much fluctuation, that without any problem it was growing properly. For much of this period, the unemployment rate, for example, average less than 5% in the most industrial countries. The developed countries, or which was developing just means just below of the developed countries, like that countries in the Western world, we can see that when the unemployment rate was very less, that it was only 5%. These decades also saw the worldwide spread of technology and enterprise. So what we can see, the people, those who are having the technology, they are moving to other countries and starting their industries in industries or factories in other countries where they are getting the cheaper labor. Then developing countries war is a hurry to catch up with the advanced industrial countries. So we can see we are also having the Japanese companies here, Hitachi and other things. Then some of the German companies are here, American companies are here in India, like that. We are all the developing countries, what they tried to get maximum industrial technology. The countries, those who are coming with technology, like their countries, they was ready to welcome to developing countries, all developing countries. Therefore, they invested vast amount of capital importing industrial plant and equipment featuring the modern technology. So what they are the countries, those who are having the capital or those who are having the technology, they are coming and they are investing huge amount in the developing countries. Then decolonization and independence. When the Second World War ended, the large part of the world were still under European colonial rule. Many countries in the world, or 80% of the country, was under the European continent or colonial rule. Over the next 2 decades, most colonies in Asia and Africa emerged as a free and independent nations. Then what the countries they are doing, they understood like that how they want to come together and fight against the colonial power. They came together and they become themselves as a free and independent nations in both continents, Asia and Africa. Thus they were, however, overburdened by the poverty and lack of resources, and their economics and societies were handicapped by long period of colonial rule. So what happened in Asian and African countries, what they faced a utter poverty. They are facing a huge poverty or utter poverty because the European countries, they exploited the countries or made our societies as a handicapped one. Then the IMF and the World Bank were designed to meet the financial needs of the industrial countries. Then the both institutions, certain institutions, what they are doing, they are trying to make a sketch or design for to meet the financial needs of the industrial countries. What they need, for whom? Industrial countries, not the developing countries or underdeveloped countries on that time. They were not equipped to cope with the challenges of poverty and lack of development in the former colonies. So they was not ready, or they was not that much equipped with the to solve the problems of their own colonies, what they made colony, or where they was ruling before. But as Europe and Japan rapidly rebuilt their economies, they grew less dependent on IMF and World Bank. Instead of that one, the two other countries, France, Germany, like their countries, still there was depending on IMF and World Bank. But two countries was different. That was Japan, some of the European countries as well as Japan, they are recovering their economical problem or financial problem without depending on a World Bank or the IMF. Then, thus from late 1950s, the Bretton Woods institutions began to shift their attention more towards developing countries. So 1950s, what happened? They started to think of the Bretton Woods institution. They started to think about the developing countries instead of developed countries, because they already started to recover, or they almost recovered. As colonies many of the less developed region of the world had been part of the Western Empire. Now, ironically, as newly independent countries facing urgent pressure to lift their population out of the poverty, they came under guidance of the international agencies dominated by the former colonial power. So we can see the colonial power. Who was the power of that time? France, Germany, Italy, and Britain, like that countries, and with that USA also joined. Like that, they made the UN or the Bretton Woods institutions. So the developing countries, or the those who are facing the problem with economical development and social development, those who are suffered under the this colonial rule, so they can't accept the work of the this colonial power, or to who was their enemies just before years before the independence. Then ever after many years, the decolonization, the former colonial power still controlled vital resources such as minerals and land in many of their former colonies. So the developing countries, again they started to depend on IMF and World Bank. So again the powers, the economical powers, or the European powers, they are getting the chance to rule over the country or control their internal and external activities of the country where they was ruling before. Then large cooperation of the powerful countries, for example the USA, also often managed to secure right to exploit developing countries' natural resources were cheaply. Even all the European countries, even America, they are getting the temptation to come back to the developing countries, because they are getting the labor as well as resource very cheaply in very low rate. At the same time, most developing countries did not benefit from the vast growth of the Western economic experience in 1950s to 60s. The most developing countries, we ourselves, or we can say before colonies, we never got any benefit from this Western economic experience, what they got or how they was earning money in 1950s and 60s. Therefore, they organized themselves as a group. The group of 77, that is known as G77, to demand a new international economic order, NIEO. They are starting in 1950s and 60s. What they are starting? They are starting NIEO, means the international group, the international G77, for what? They are organizing themselves to get the economical freedom, or making a new economical structure in the world for that purpose. By the NIEO, they meant a system of would give them real control over their natural resources, more development assistance, fair price for a raw material and the better access for their manufactured goods in developed countries market. What was their aim by NIEO? They are asking the government, the UN to give the control, the real control over their natural resources in their hands. Then more development activities from the developed countries. Then fair prices for raw materials. When they are other countries, developed countries are purchasing raw materials, they should get the better price for their what their product. Then and better access of for their manufactured goods and goods in the developed countries market. So in the last what we are seeing, the better access for the manufactured goods in the developed countries. What we are making the developed countries, that should go to the market of the developed countries. Like that we want to get the free flow. So what we are discussing here, we are discussing the decolonization, means the countries become independent or free just after that, when the Bretton Woods institutions started to work in the developing countries. Again the European power or the Western power, they got chance to make their colonies, old colonies, as their new colonies, or we can say like that neo-colonization they are starting. So this also a part of our globalization. We have seen that they are trying to come and invest money here in India. What are the reasons? Cheap labor, like that things we have discussed already. So one more topic is there. Okay, we'll continue in next video.